Derek ordered from your preferred drive-thru and temporarily parked in the shade to pass out the goods. He handed you your drink and a folded paper bag with your food. You dug in immediately. Derek's ride was nice and still had a new car smell, but he had no problem with people eating in it. He shared his philosophy of the inevitably that lived-in stuff is going to get dirty. He wasn't going to get mad about normal wear and tear. With a big family of busy boys, an inability to keep things pristine certainly must have been an unavoidable fact of life for Derek. You and him enjoyed the meal. It was long finished when he pulled into his apartment's designated parking spot. With sunset dimmed down to inky blackness, it was hard to see. Derek switched on an interior car lights as you gathered up the trash in the bags that dinner had come in. He led the way to his place, key in hand, and unlocked the door. Derek held it open for you instead of going through. You could have told someone he'd do that before it ever happened. That was second nature to Derek. You took a few steps in and flicked on the front light switch. Derek came in second and closed the door behind him. Phew. He walked further into his living room and flopped down on his couch. That was a successful day. A long, successful day. I feel like you've already been here a week, and you got here this morning. I've practically forgotten I don't live here. Well, that's easily fixed. Derek then snorted and shook his head. Or maybe not easily. I just remembered when I last moved. Still, you're welcome around here anytime. Derek leaned his head back as he thought. Tomorrow's gonna be busy too. He raised his hand and counted each of the planned activities with a finger. Groceries, taking the bros out, and then the Father's Day thing. I also want to get something gift-wise for Father's Day. So add that to the list. I want to get something for your dad and Mr. Holden for the holiday. You're so nice. We can find something when we're out shopping, I bet. Thanks. That'll work out. Derek blinked sleepily, sinking further into the couch. He looked cozy. He shook himself and suddenly clapped his hands together. But hey, you probably want to shower and settle in for real before it gets even later. He grabbed the back of the couch and hauled himself to the feet.
No worries.
We can always work on the schedule when we're not sweaty and exhausted. But that's the best time to plan things. Derek exhaled sharply at your joke, and you smiled. Yeah, I'll go gladly take your hot water. Bye, Derek. Bye, Derek. Derek waved you off as you turned to the guest room. You got out your stuff, put your toiletries in the bathroom, and showered. You tried to be quick and were soon in your pajamas, winding down for the night. Once again, you were back in your room. You plugged in your phone charger and unpacked tomorrow's clothes. A knock rattled your door. Can I come in? Yeah.
Thanks.
Derek accepted your invitation and shut the door behind him after you walked in. So you sat on the bed and patted the spot next to you. You shut your suitcase and climbed on the edge of the bed. You scooted to the corner, leaving room for a Derek-sized person to sit down. Derek stood in the corner of the room, not getting the hint until you gestured at the empty space beside you. Oh. He strode forward and hopped onto the mattress. The bed bounced beneath you. He grinned boyishly at you. Everything good in here? It is. Thanks for asking. Yeah, of course. I'm glad it's going well. Derek stretched his arms above his head and yawned. Despite his sleepiness, he remained abode. Rather than seeming done with the conversation, he appeared to be mulling something over, probably what to say next. He wasn't being responsible and going to bed early. You didn't mind. This was your first day having gotten together, and there was no need to rush its end. A spark came to his eyes, inspiration striking him. He instinctively leaned closer to you, bringing your face almost nose to nose. Faye, while you're here, we should go to the water park. There's one ways away, but it should be worth it. He eagerly continued to lay out his thought process. We haven't done something like that since that boardwalk. Man, that was ages ago and our families were there. If we tried it, we could keep it just you and me. Obviously, there's not a chance tomorrow, so how about the day after that? We could get there first thing, spend the afternoon together, and get going before it gets late. He paused and took a hopeful breath. All of his attention focused on your reaction. So, what do you think? That's perfect. A water park was such a good summer kind of thing to do. You looked forward to Derek finally taking you. Alright. Wait a second. His eyes went wide as something dawned on him. Would that be a date? Am I asking you on a date? That's how it sounded to me. A water park date. The realization hit him hard. Derek's teeth were clenched, and he leaned back as he tried to process. Oh, hold on. He held his hands in the air in front of you frantically and gestured for you to stay. I gotta go do something, but I'll be right back, please. Well, you know. He launched himself off the bed and across the floor. He fled the room before you could blink. You stayed put, not sure what else to do. Derek should be okay, hopefully. You were intrigued and wondered what he was doing. Your imagination ran wild with possibilities. Was he getting something? Did he need to talk to someone? This had to be related to accidentally asking you on a date, right? You waited in silence, occasionally tapping your foot. It had been about a minute until your phone rang. You couldn't help but chuckle at the absurd timing of the interruption. You glanced at your phone on the side table, then craned your neck to see if Derek was anywhere to be found. Derek wasn't in the hall. You went over to your phone and picked it up. You didn't plan on answering, but did want to see who in the world needed to ring right at the moment. The name lit up by your caller ID was Derek. What? You paused, doing nothing but staring at jiggling device in your palm. Then you slid your finger over the screen and the answer. Wow, what a coincidence that you called. I was just thinking about you. Derek chuckled. You could hear the nerves in his voice, even through the slight distortion from the phone. Hello, this is Derek Suarez. You were on my mind too, and I want to see you, and so I'm calling you to ask if you'd agree to go on a date on Monday. You instantly laughed, loudly but affectionately. Why did you have to call to ask me that? People arrange dates in person all the time. Derek hesitated before responding. Then he replied soft and shy. Well, if you want the truth, since I was finally asking you out for real, I felt like I owed it to my younger self to do it over the phone. That only gave you more questions. You waited for him to continue. His voice quieted to almost a whisper. There were, over the years, I've thought about you a lot. You've never been forgettable. No matter how busy I was, I'd still remember how great it was hanging out. I missed you. And then I hype myself up, tell myself to pick up the stupid phone and ask you out. It wouldn't be the end of the world if you didn't want it, and hey, maybe it would work out. I'd march over to the phone, put it to my ear and my fingers on the buttons, and then nothing. I put it back down to the side and think about how I didn't really have the time, and you were probably busy and you wouldn't want to date me anyway. This time I did it. I really called you and said what I wanted to say. If I'm being honest, sometimes I thought you didn't like me. You had so many other things to do. You had felt forgotten. Maybe he didn't want to be friends. Maybe he was merely a casual acquaintance all along. All these years, when you would have been utterly ecstatic for him to reach out, to find out that it was because he didn't have faith that you'd appreciate his attention was heartbreaking. Derek sighed a pained noise. I'm sorry, it was my problem. None of it was because of you. No one spoke, and the awkwardness began to press on you. But Derek brightened his voice, unwilling to let it linger anymore. Well, it's late. I shouldn't keep you up. I'll see you tomorrow, bright and early. We should plan to leave the apartment by around 8 for shopping. Everything's close enough that we can walk. If that's alright. Okay.
Good
Great.
night.
Good night, Faye. Night. You heard a beep and the call ended. You put your phone back on the table in your empty room. After all of what you had earned your exhaustion, you were at your limit, too sleepy to do anything else. You flickered the light switch and went straight to bed. You woke up the next morning in an unfamiliar but awfully comfortable bed. The sheets smelled of an unknown laundry detergent. You slowly observed your surroundings. This was Derek's place, wasn't it? And you were on a schedule. You groaned and rolled over to check the clock on the side table. You had woken up with plenty of time. You slipped out of bed and casually got yourself ready. Soon you wandered into the living room, your mind drifting back to what Derek said last night. It was a heavy admission from him. his lack of confidence to reach out to you. You didn't want to dwell on it. It was a heavy day. It was a big day for the entire Suarez family, and you didn't want to rain on their parade just because you were aware that it used to flood in the past. Derek would bring it up if he wanted to talk more about it, but until then, he would let it lie. The man on your mind was nowhere to be seen when you left the hall, but you did notice a note sitting on the kitchen counter. You checked the message. Derek wanted to let you know that he'd gone down to the gym in the apartment complex. You read the rest of it out loud. You read the rest of it aloud to yourself. So that's where I'll be if you don't see me. I'll be back around 7:30 a.m. Thanks, Derek. You smiled at his consideration. He could have texted you, but had probably worried about disturbing you. Making physical notes was an old habit of his. You checked your phone, and it was 7 a.m. You had 30 minutes to fill. You turned on Derek's TV. You found Derek's remote and wriggled until you felt comfortable on his couch. You turned on the TV and idly channel surfed before opening one of his streaming services. You clicked through your options and found a light show that your 30-minute countdown wouldn't be a problem. Exactly at 7:30 a.m., Derek returned. A gym bag was slung over his shoulder. He appeared to have had a strenuous workout by the sheen of sweat on his skin.
Morning.
Faye. What you up to? Morning, sunshine. I've been watching something. Cool, I was at the gym. As I correctly deduced from your note.
Awesome.
Perfect. That's what it was for. He started to laugh, and you joined in. It was nice to have him back. Derek took a quick shower, and you two left the apartment to run your errands before the day could start in earnest. Derek picked the most direct path to the nearby grocery store. Around you, the city bustled as people tried to get to work. Cars lined the streets and people hurried into various buildings. It took approximately 10 minutes to reach the automatic doors of the store and step into the air conditioning. Various displays tried to sell you on all the Father's Day deals. There wasn't much about it that set this one apart from the one in your old town. We're probably gonna get me the cart. He pulled one out with a smooth movement. It was slightly squeaky wheel.
Let's get to it.
There, we're ready to go. He leaned over the handle like he was at the start of a kart race, waiting for the shot to go off. So, what protein do you want? It was a good question. At that point of your life, you were not picky and ate almost everything. That was something Derek was already aware of, but he couldn't make an entire meal plan for you. We can start cooking at home for some of your meals, though a lot of what we'll eat today will probably still be from my parents' house or restaurants. I'd say we'll only need 2 or 3 packs of things.
What do you
I'm
think?
thinking chicken, sausage, and eggs, but you can get something else. I want to make sure there's stuff you want to eat. You inspected your surroundings and thought about what you wanted. You wanted what Derek had suggested. That'll work. Great. Alright,
Alright.
let's also grab some good vegetables to go with that, and some rice or whatever. Let's remember to check the discount rack. Derek snorted. He craned his neck around to look for it.
I'm
You're a genius.
impressed. So?
Oh, and what were you thinking of getting for a gift? I've gotta grab a card for Mr. Holden while we're at it. You considered your options. It need to be easy to transport. Something that could go bad probably wouldn't be the best choice. You thought about what Derek's dad would appreciate. You went for a tie. For Mr. Holden, you imagined what he'd enjoyed. You selected also a tie. Cool. You can always use more ties. You began your very purposeful browsing. Derek speed walked with the cart. He kept things moving but wasn't rushing you either. It was nearly as leisurely as when you'd first shopped with him. Neither of you were in a rush and appreciated the company. However, as adults, the atmosphere between you was markedly different. Before, you had investigated the store as if every shelf could hold buried treasures. Now, the items took little attention, and you spent more energy observing each other's presence. Grocery shopping was more of a chore than less of an experience. However, even chores weren't bad with Derek. You both debated brands, helped spot elusive items, and encouraged each other to get what you wanted. If one of you hesitated over something, the other would compel the other to treat themselves. Mutual decisions were praised for the good taste, and strange selections were jokingly ridiculed. It was the best visit to the grocery store you'd had in ages. When you checked the discount rack, there were small packets from the store's bakery, mostly cookies from the day before. It wasn't grand, but it was a more reasonably sized treat for two than, say, a whole pie. That's how Derek felt about it. He grabbed one and dropped it in the cart. Knowing him, he planned to share. After getting the goods, he went through the self-checkout to pay for it all. Derek scanned and you backed until everything was put away and paid for. The first part of the shopping trip was over. Now you had to carry it all back, on foot. Derek loaded himself up with supplies eagerly. It was nice seeing him in a good mood. He continued to grab the bags without asking you to help. It soon became obvious that he intended to carry all of them. You hurried and snatched a few bags before he could. You wouldn't let him get away with such a scheme. Oh, well, thank you. You retraced the path back to the apartment, crossing through the crowded streets with bundles of groceries. The pace was brisk. The two of you had places to be and people to see. As soon as you returned, Derek bumped the bags onto the counter. He turned his head over his shoulder to face you. We can just put the cold stuff in the fridge and leave the rest. We gotta go soon. You placed what you carried on the end of the counter. You snatched the eggs and opened the nearly empty refrigerator. Where in the fridge?
Whatever
Wherever
works.
you'll remember it being. What sage or organizational advice? You nodded along with Derek's enthusiasm. Let's do it. With confident determination, the two of you tore through the bags in search of goods that needed to be stayed chilled. With the team effort, it only took a couple minutes to put the groceries away safely. Nice work, Faye. He offered you a triumphant high five. You gave his hand a loud smack. Now nothing's stopping us. We can actually eat some of these groceries we got. Immediately, if not sooner. Given the ticking clock, you had a fast and simple breakfast. While it wasn't fancy, it satisfied your appetite and would fuel you throughout the day. When you were done, Derek placed the dirty dishes in the sink. He gave them a light rinse and wiped his hands.
Right.
We gotta go. The bros are waiting. In short order, you exited the apartment, as you would be staying out longer. Derek was more cautious leaving his place. Derek double-checked that he locked the door and went to his car. You jumped in the passenger seat and buckled your seatbelt. Derek started the ignition and checked behind him before he easily pulled out the spot. George texted me and said he was already at Mom and Dad's place. He's gonna leave his car there, and then you, me, him, and Nico will all go in mine. It'd be too much of an extra hassle to make George drive behind us. He grinned cheekily with a knowing glance. But I did already tell him what you had dibs on shotgun. Thank you.
You're
Of course,
welcome.
I am happy to use my eldest brother powers for you. Derek was bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. His focus stayed on the road. He boldly navigated through the packed streets, his entire demeanor screaming his familiarity with this drive. The sounds of traffic droned on, making it easy to zone out. You hadn't even noticed that the conversation had completely dropped off until Derek spoke up with a question. So, thoughts on what you were watching before? Was it any good? It was great. I like to hear that. Maybe I'll check it out. So, how was your gym adventure? It was excellent. I worked up a sweat this morning. Thanks for asking. That's good. What do you think we'll do today? It's a mystery. Well,
Maybe.
sort of. George would probably want to go see a game if there's anything good happening. Other than that, he'd pick whatever's current at the movies. But it's Nico's controlling today's activities, and he has a distinctive style. Expect him to pick what we usually don't do, so it could be almost everything. We listened to him with interest as he chatted about the previous Nico misadventures. The bee farm, in particular, sounded inspired. Derek turned into the same parking lot from the day before you'd arrived at the other Suarez household. You both got out of the car and walked up to their door in the complex. It swung open before Derek could knock. Derek took a stepped back, not expecting it. George grinned from the doorway and welcomed you inside.
Hey!
Hey,
bro.
welcome back.
Welcome back. George's fist bumped his brother, each of them excited. Hey George, what's up? You know, life. He led you further into the condo. Nicholas was lounging on the couch. He twisted around to face you.
You're here.
You're here. His voice was casual, and his face was politely pleasant. He eased off the cushion, getting it to his feet. Without any particular hurry, he drifted over towards the entryway. Of course, we wouldn't miss it. You noticed Mr. and Mrs. Suarez cleaning up in the kitchen. They must have just finished breakfast themselves. Oh, looks like we have company. Welcome. It's nice to see you too. Derek nodded and his mom turned around to put a jar of strawberry jam into the refrigerator.
Hello.
Hello, Derek. Good morning, Faye. How was the drive? Hi, Dad. The drive was same as usual, but forget about that. Derek lit up in anticipation and beamed.
Congrats.
Happy Father's Day. Yeah, Happy Father's Day. Mrs. Suarez patted her husband on the back, and he puffed up, full proud dad mode. Thank you. Oh, and my mom said Happy Father's Day too. He directed his attention towards you. Thank you again. It's a wonderful day already. Derek observed contentedly before glancing over his brothers. George had pulled out his phone at some point, and Nicholas absent-mindedly fiddled with his hair clips. You two ready to go?
Yeah!
I was born ready. With that zealous claim, Nicholas was suddenly all fired up. George crossed his arms, decidedly not as energetic. I'm not that level of ready, but I can manage leaving now. Do you need anything, Faye? No. Alright, then let's go.
Are you sure?
No one needs to go potty. Mrs. Suarez poked her head into the conversation, her expression too innocent. All three of her sons slumped their shoulders and sighed. Yes, Mom.
Yes, Mom.
Yes, Mom. Yes, Mom. Perfect. She clapped her hands together and the boys relaxed, all showing different degrees of amusement.
Have a good one.
Have fun, and we'll see you this evening.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Talk to you later.
See you tonight. We'll be there. Now let's roll out. Derek led the way after waving to his parents. He held the door for you and his brothers. Outside, he unlocked the car and it beeped. George and Nicholas beelined for the vehicle. George initially went for the passenger seat before catching himself and opening the car door. Nicholas barreled into the back seat without hesitation. You and Derek got into the car, completing the seating arrangement that Derek had discussed prior. As Derek turned the key in the ignition, it struck you that the last time you had been on outing with only the four of you was when you'd been the boys' babysitter. Now George was an actual adult, and Nicholas wasn't that far behind him. It was surreal. Thinking about how much had changed over the years, everyone had grown up. You wondered how Nicholas and George felt about hanging out with the big kids as equals. You glanced at the two through the rear view mirror and noticed Nicholas's gaze on you with an expression that you couldn't quite place. Derek cranked up the AC but kept the car in park. He leaned his head back.
What's up?
So, Nico, where am I going? The youngest leaned forward, sticking his head through the gap between the car's front seats. I want to go to... It's a bakery. Derek raised his eyebrows and exchanged a look with George. Wow, this is a surprise. Even more of one than I had figured. You're not a fan of cakes and cupcakes and all things sugary. Yeah, I thought you grew out of all of that. George's tone was more teasing than Derek's. With mock skepticism, Nicholas rolled his eyes. I did. Most desserts are totally inedible. This place is different. The owner is cool, and we should support local businesses. They've got vegan and gluten-free options and other stuff too. Now, can we get over there? The later it gets, the more stuff will be sold out. Bring it up on your phone. It should be 20 minutes from here. Derek chuckled but chose not to comment on all the defensive explanations. Your wish is my command.
Thanks.
Thank you. Nicholas smiled sweeter than his dessert preferences. Derek brought out his phone and typed out sake on the maps program. Nothing obvious turned up. Nicholas nodded, still poking his head towards the front of the car. Try an X, not a Z.
I got you.
Gotcha. Derek corrected his spelling and then tapped the first result. It was open, averagely busy, and an estimated 22 minutes away. Now buckle up. Nicholas flung himself backwards and settled in the seat. Derek waited for him to click his seatbelt before shifting the car into reverse. George had been buckled since his brother had started the car, and you weren't far behind. You wondered if it was normal for Nicholas to need a reminder. The directions chimed in over the speakers to head east. Derek shook his head. Let me escape the parking lot first. He muttered to the mapping program as it kept giving him unhelpful instructions. Once he reached the road, it finally stopped complaining about Derek's twists and turns. George drew one of his legs up and leaned against the car door, getting comfy. If we were gonna go somewhere with a bakery, we could have gone to the grocery store. Think about the convenience.
No.
Come on, bro. We've got a car now. We can have higher standards than a grocery store's bakery section. George laughed back at him, but doubled down.
No.
I still would have picked a normal supermarket. It's a classic. Derek grinned as he flicked his turn signal on. Most of his attention was on the stoplight in front of him, but he still took opportunity to banter.
Sorry.
George, Faye, and I want to go to the grocery store today without you. Already? Yeah, I was out of basically everything. Shoot, we missed out then. George closed his eyelids tightly and hummed in thought. Remember back when Nicholas insisted on using his allowance on a carton of eggs so he could see if cooking them on the sidewalk worked? Yeah, I also remember all the raw egg puddles and eating scrambled eggs for breakfast and dinner. Nicholas shrugged his shoulders high, justified but hiding his embarrassment. Inquiring minds had to know, and it was more exciting than getting an apple. George's eye narrowed, openly judging his little brother. I wanted to eat an apple, and I did. My purchase led to zero regret, unlike your science experiment. I always wanted to try frying an egg on the street. Nicholas's seatbelt strained it against him, leaning forward. You get it. It felt hot enough that summer that it should have worked. It was worth checking. I still think there has to be a way to do it. The lively discussion continued through the drive. About 20 minutes later, the GPS chimed that the destination was on the right. Derek turned into a packed row of shops. Above one of them, a bright pink sign with electrified swirled letters of proclaimed itself as Sake. It grabbed your attention, standing out amongst the more studded signs around it. Nicholas shimmied in his seat. Derek found a parking place along the street and carefully parallel parked. Enough cars zoomed past on the street that Nicholas and Derek didn't feel safe opening their car doors. You and George got out first and waited on the sidewalk for the two to crawl out. Nicholas stifled his laughter as he watched Derek contort himself over the gear shift. The spot had a meter, so Derek paid for 30 minutes worth of parking. We should be in and out, right? You're not planning to have a whole meal here. Definitely not.
All right.
Then that'll work. Despite the minor bumps getting there, all the boys were visibly thrilled. You were delighted. Nicholas fussed with his hair and readjusted his romper. Once he had straightened it back out, he nodded at George, who had waited by him. Derek marched ahead of the pack, and you were certain that he was going to hold Sake's door open for everyone. You rushed ahead to open it first. Derek approached the door as expected, but you whipped your arm past him to grab the handle. He stopped in place. Stunned, you took advantage of his confusion, pulled the door and held it. You gestured to the others to go in. After you. Derek remained glued to the ground, still awkwardly processing that you snipped the door from him. George and Nicholas did not have that troubles. They strolled past, finding the event hilarious.
Thanks.
Thank you, Faye.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're too kind. You nearly tapped your foot while waiting for Derek. Finally, he responded, raising his chin and smirking.
I see how it is.
I see how it is. His competitive side took over. His posture relaxed in the way a tiger's did before pouncing. Thank you. He walked in but kept his sharp gaze entirely focused on you. Then he winked. You got me. Don't plan to make it a habit. You knew that only meant it wouldn't be easy to beat him going forward. Well, that was fine with you. You followed the boys and let the door shut behind you.